So I'm going to go over a basic outline template for the um, project, the inspirational text project here. Um, there's going to be parts where I'm okay with you copying it exactly with a citation. There's other parts where I want you to look at the theory of what I'm doing here, but then not copying it word for word. So watch the video, get the basic idea of what you're trying to do, but then when you go to type the text, you shouldn't have this open in front of you. So I'll make clear which parts are which. So the first thing you always want to do, and I guess I should get this in here myself, is have your own name there, date, just so when you go back and see the code, you can see when it was written or revised, and then short description. I'm not going to put that right here, but you do want to describe what this code does in general. You also want to include any, whoops, you want to include any links that you use or things that you use heavily. Make sure that you cite them credit. Otherwise, could be considered plagiarism, which can be a very, very serious offense, can even get your degree taken away from you, some pretty stiff punishments. So just get in the habit of, if you're not sure, just go ahead and cite it anyway. It can't hurt. After that, you want to do your imports, and specifically, you want to do these imports. This is something where you can just go ahead and copy it item for item. You'll need this stuff for the email sending as well as the SMTP library. And then the random you'll also need for the email send. You may have additional modules that you're importing right here, modules, packages, libraries, especially whatever you do for your special feature of the program that might incorporate some other module. And if so, you typically put those at the top of your file. Next, you'll put your functions. So this function here, the send email function, you can copy letter for letter. You can pause the video and just copy everything. That's completely fine. Do make sure, again, that you have this right here. You don't have to have the info and ports. That's more for your own benefit if you decide to use port if you set up an email address other than Microsoft Office, you could change the port. But you do need to have that line for starter code if you include this email, which I think you should. You should include this function as it is. This is a function that encrypts your text. It shifts it by some position. So here you would just put a string into this function, any string, and then shift it by any number, really, any number between 1 and 25. So you can do that later as one of the features in your program. If you were one that did the optional assignment, or maybe it wasn't depending on how long this video goes, you may have your own Caesar function there, but it's fine to use this, again, character for character. You can use this as it is. The get file, here I would like you to not copy this character for character. This one, you should get the idea of what I'm doing here, but then you should not have this in front of you as you're doing it. So what you want to do inside this is we're trying to get the user to input a file, but we need to make sure that it's a valid file name in the correct location. And that's why we're doing a try and accept. A try and accept will make sure that, that if it doesn't open, if this file isn't there where we say it is, then it'll give the user a message. And the reason why we're putting it in a while loop is so that the user has multiple times to try. In fact, they have infinitely many times to try until they get the name of a correct file. So here, this is just a typical input statement where I'm telling the user what to put in, and then I save that as a variable called file. Then I'm doing my with open statement, except instead of typing the name of the file, I don't know what the name of the file is going to be. It's whatever the user puts in. So then I just write that variable that we saved up here in the previous line. And then I'm going to save it as a string. So I'm going to open that file wrapper, and I'm going to do it in, I would strongly suggest f.read You could save it as a list of separate lines, but I think that's going to get much more complicated in the rest of the program. So I would just save it as some variable name that's a string. And then the file can just return that the string that's inside the text file. And then you have that message if it doesn't work. So here, this line, what that does, it calls the getFile function, which is right here. And when it returns something, it's going to return the contents of the file that the user has put in. It'll save that as file. So for the rest of the program then, that variable file can be used, and that'll be the text itself, the text that you're going to analyze, that you're going to count words in, that you're going to do all these operations. So here's the menu and the program that runs, a template for it anyway. And remember, you do need these 7 options. You need these same 7 options. The way I suggest doing it, there's several different ways you could do it, but the way I suggest doing it is a while loop. And this while loop is going to just continually run as many times as the user wants to, as long as user does not equal 7. So user starts off, I mean, you could put anything here. You could put octopus. As long as you don't put 7 here, you'll get inside to the while loop. And then after the first time, it's going to based on whatever they select from their menu, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. And if they choose 7, which is to quit, 7 option is to quit, then it will not let them back in the while loop, and they'll be done with the program. However, if they choose anything else other than 6, then, or 7, then they're inside the program. And the first thing you should do is give them a menu. So notice I put in some new line spaces here that'll format it nicely and show them their 7 options. And your 7, they may be worded slightly different, but it should be these same 7 options, other than option number 5 should not be read the text backwards. That should be whatever special feature you've decided to put into your program. So that whole thing gets printed for the user as an input, and whatever they do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, it'll get saved as user. Now notice, if they do put in some other thing other than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it'll just give them this else statement, which says choose a number 1 to 7, and then it'll go back to the top here and redo it. It's not going to crash the program or anything like that. So then remember, you need the double equal sign if you're checking whether the variable they put in is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For each one of these, you'll need to perform a task. You could create a function for some of these or all of them, or you could just put the code directly here. I don't care, whichever you find more useful. I gave you some starting ideas in each one. So the first item should count the number of times something occurs. So I give you a suggestion for what to say to them and then to save that as a variable name. Again, this part of the code I want you to do on your own. I don't want you to sit down at the computer and have this screen open, this video open, and type this. You can watch the video and get the idea, but when you're programming it yourself, you should not have this open. So the first time you're just going to get a term, and then somehow you're going to use the count method. If you don't know what that is, Google it. What's the count method for strings? And then you're going to let the user know, oh, that word or that phrase showed up 77 times. And then you're going to actually show them a location. I'm going to suggest that you use the index or find command, and you can Google those, how to use them. But it'll give you the location of wherever it finds this phrase. And then once you have that location, say if it's position 100, you could maybe back it up by, say, 20 characters, and then maybe out by 50 characters or something like that. But your start and end point of your string slice here can be centered on that location of the term that they're looking for. And then you have a find and replace. So again, you're going to look up the replace method of strings. For the Caesar function, you should already have that typed. And remember, this you can type character for character, but you need to figure out how to call it. Remember the shift, you can choose anything you want between 1 and 25, or you could do a random number between 1 and 25. But the text itself will just be the file that you're working with, and the shift will be that number between 1 and 25. And when you do that, it'll return an encrypted version of the text. 5, you should do your special feature, whatever that may be. 6, this is where we're looking at an email address, and I've given you a suggestion here where you can get a random number. This idea right here could be quite useful up in number 2 also, but this is a situation where I'm going to the left and to the right of this random number to grab a random chunk of text. And then you're somehow going to have to use that send email. Again, the send email itself, you can copy letter for letter, and when you're going to use it, think about what each of these are. Now, we will talk about this in class also, but there's going to be 5 things that you need to put inside that function. And then 7, just come up with some goodbye that you print out to the user, and that will be it. Again, the else is going to pick up if they do an unexpected entry right there. So that's your basic idea. Feel free to not use this also. Use this as much as it is helpful, but there are plenty of other ways to program this project also. So good luck, and let me know if you have questions.